Now, so let me finish up with the universe so that we can go to other matters. Steven Weinberg said in his book on cosmology, which is not a beginner's book, it's actually an advanced book, as I will show you. He actually starts his book with this fact: the visible universe seems the same in all directions around us. At least if we look out to distances larger than about 300 million light years. Scientists and cosmologists are amazed at how homogeneous the universe looks everywhere you look. When we say homogeneous, it's not, looking and saying, oh wow, it's dark here, it's homogeneous. No. Looking at the qualities, they're measuring things, temperature, light, and other such values in all different locations in the universe, and it all seems the same. Next slide. So these are some of the equations in his book. I'm just trying to prove to you this is not a beginner's book. Okay, this is an advanced graduate book, and he starts his book with this reality. Scientists are amazed at the homogeneity of our universe. Next. In this book, they say there is no evidence of a center and no evidence of an edge. It's not like a box, it's not a sphere. They cannot find an edge, again in terms of qualities, not visually. They cannot find a center. The universe appears the same in every location. Thus they call it, most scholars call it homogeneous. The universe is homogeneous. And in every direction it is isotropic. Okay? So usually you will hear cosmologists say the universe is homogeneous and isotropic. Okay? It's almost the same everywhere. Just to challenge our brains, and maybe this is also possibly one of the signs of the i'jaz, wallahu a'lam, this may be something that the Quran is indicating. Again, with i'jaz, brothers and sisters, we have to be careful. Don't just come and say the Quran says this. I remember recently, some discovery was made. A few days later, I hear someone on the radio saying, the Quran, this is already in the Quran. Wait a second, what are you talking about? And then when he mentioned the verse, I said, this is far away. You cannot just take any verse and, twist it around and say, see, it's already in the Quran. This is not what it's about. But we want to discover what is truly meant by those verses, by the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if indeed it does seem to be an indication of some scientific fact that is recently discovered. Okay, so we have to be careful. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Noble Quran, أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا أَمِ السَّمَاءِ بَنَاهَا رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا فَسَوَّاهَا. رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا is a reference to elevating it. Of course, as the universe is everywhere, this elevation is also proof of its expanse. رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا is further proof of its vastitude. Okay, the vastitude of the universe. رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا فَسَوَّاهَا. What does فَسَوَّاهَا mean? Think about it. I claim, wallahu a'lam, it may have something to do with this homogeneity. Because when you talk about the word sawwa in Arabic, part of that meaning is to make something level. Not with one part, or one edge higher than another. It's all level. Okay? This may be a reference to this homogeneity of the universe. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And, who knows what the future will show us, inshallah. So I think that's enough on the universe. I mean, there's so much, but I want to try to, maybe speak about some of the other issues also. Next one. Some will probably skip. Let me talk about this quickly, since we live in Malaysia and every day it rains, and we think to ourselves, what's happening here? And I'm sure that you are always wondering, what kind of cloud is giving us, all this rain and thunder and lightning. And so these are some of the different types of clouds as scientists have classified them. You can even see there's an elevation on the left-hand side. This is obviously in feet, right? We're talking about 35,000 feet at the top, not 35,000 meters. Okay, so that's approximately the height that a plane flies at, right? Around 30,000 feet, 10 kilometers or so. So these are the different types of clouds, okay? And what you see is that there are two types of clouds that are mentioned that actually produce rain. The nimbostratus clouds and the cumulonimbus clouds, okay? But, in my research and reading, I found out that the stratocumulus also produces a little bit of rain. This one. Right. But, what do you find unique about this picture? What?
That goes up until the high.
Very high and vertical, but what do you see in that cloud? Lightning, which you don't see in any other type of cloud. So that's interesting, right? So basically, scientists are telling us the only type of cloud that produces lightning, rain and lightning, is the cumulonimbus cloud. And as the brother mentioned, the cumulonimbus cloud is huge. It's vertical. It almost looks like something large, high. What do you talk about usually that's high, vertically tall? Other than basketball players, we're talking about very tall, very high.
Skyscrapers.
Yeah, skyscrapers. What else? What are some of the tallest creation that you see on the earth? Anything? No? No, on the earth. Natural. A natural creation. Mountains. It looks like a mountain in the sky. Right? Next slide. See, this is a real picture, National Geographic. It took me a while to find this picture for you. I hope you appreciate it. See, look how high it is, right? And look at the way even the lightning actually comes from the top. Some of the lightning comes from the bottom of the cloud, sometimes it comes from the top. But look at how high it is. This is probably not even that high. The cumulonimbus can get much higher also. But this is a simple example of a cumulonimbus cloud. Okay, next slide. So look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran. Do you not see that Allah drives clouds? Then He brings them together. Then He makes them into a mass. And you see the rain emerge from within it. And He sends down from the sky mountains of clouds within which is hail. The Arabic word in the Quran that is mentioned is actually jibal. Jibal fiha min barad. He describes this type of mountain, this type of cloud, as a mountain, okay, in which is hail. And He strikes with it whom He wills and averts it from whom He wills. The flash of its lightning almost takes away the eyesight. Is there any clearer correlation between lightning, hail, and a mountain of a cloud, the cumulonimbus cloud? So, I have no problem saying that this ayah is talking about the cumulonimbus cloud. It's one of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They called it cumulonimbus. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described it in this verse. There are other verses talking about rain, but no mention of lightning, no mention of hail or ice stones. Only this one mentions hail, lightning, and calls it this mountain type of a cloud. Go back to the picture now, sister. You can. One, maybe the one before also. The cumulonimbus cloud. Subhanak ya Rab. You see that correlation? It's amazing. So again, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ knew about the cumulonimbus cloud. This is all recent stuff. All recent discoveries, subhanAllah. Next. We don't have a lot of time. Next one, sister. No time for mountains. Next. Yeah, next. Okay. So I'm reversing it for you. I'm keeping your brain fresh. Now we're going to start with the verse, then we go to the science. He sends down from the sky rain, and valleys flow according to their capacity. So this is water flowing to valleys and forming these almost like rivers or torrents. And the torrent carries a rising foam. This is one process, so that you don't get confused. It ends here. Water coming down, valleys overflowing with torrents and water. Okay? The second process now, completely separate. And from that ore, so now we're coming to the process of mining ores, right? Extracting metals from their ores in the mines. And from that ore, which they heat in the fire, desiring adornments and utensils, is a foam like it. Two independent, unrelated processes. The flowing of water in the valleys, the mining of ores. Okay? But they have been juxtaposed, as you see, in the Quran. Thus Allah presents the example of truth and falsehood. As for the foam, it vanishes, being cast off. But as for that which benefits the people, it remains on the earth. Thus does Allah present examples. Clearly a verse that is alluding to scientific processes. If anyone wanted to go after i'jaz, here it is. It's clear. It's just about taking this feed. Allah Azza wa Jalla is feeding you this information. Take the information and do something with it. It's clearly a scientific process, right? And this is only discovered recently, and this was presented in one of the recent conferences on i'jaz, which alhamdulillah I was fortunate to attend. And this is just a very, very fresh research. I don't think anything has been done on it before. Only recently discovered. Next. Let's make sense now of the verse. Next slide. So, this is the first process. Water coming down and flowing in the valleys. Okay. Next. And then mining. The mining of ores. Again, seemingly unrelated. And that's precisely what should kindle something in our brains. These are two separate processes. Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala putting them in the same place and next to each other? There must be some type of similarity which we don't know about. Let's go out and discover it. Right? Next. And that's what this man did. This is a metaphor. This is part of the ambiguity. The ambiguity sometimes exists because we understand it to be a metaphor. Because the metaphor is about what? Al-haq wal-batil. Truth and falsehood, right? But the beauty of the Quran is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hidden these scientific gems for you and me and all of humanity in these verses that talk about guidance and truth and falsehood in an amazing way. Who else can exquisitely weave topics that seem so diametrically different, right? I'jaz in the middle of a metaphor talking about truth and falsehood, right? And the fact that truth will always be above and falsehood will wither away and disappear and so on. So the first process we said, this is in the science of stream ecology, they call it the self-purification. That these valleys and the flow of water in the valleys, they actually are practicing a process of self-purification. These valleys are purifying themselves, okay? Through, obviously, hydrological methods, okay? So this process of water flowing is actually a purification. It's a cleansing of the valley, of the bacteria, of the fungus, of whatever is available, all right, or present. So, purification through hydrological processes. When you come to mining, the main method that scientists used to use to extract metals from their ores is pyrometallurgy, using fire to heat up, okay, the ore, and then to be able to extract the metal from it. So using heat and fire to extract the metal from its ore. Only recently did they discover that there are other methods by which they can also extract metals from their ores. And this comes under hydrometallurgy. Processes that involve fluids. Under hydrometallurgy, you have chemical leaching and bioleaching. In the case of chemical leaching, they use certain chemicals to extract the ore. They expose those ores to some chemicals, acids and whatnot. And through that they are able to extract the metal. In bioleaching they use bacteria. They use bacteria to be able to extract metals from their ores. These are recent discoveries, recent processes. What's very interesting is that these processes, also categorized under hydrometallurgy, is the same process that is used for self-purification of the valleys that we were talking about before. So now you see the common denominator. The hydrological processes used in the first process are now also usable to extract metals from their ores. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put both processes together for us. And what is very interesting is that the foam that results from chemical and bioleaching in the mining of ores, the foam that results is very similar also in quality to the foam that results from the self-purification process in the valleys. Who would have thought? And I think until now, people will have difficulty understanding and seeing the similarity. It's amazing, subhanAllah. This is the i'jaz. This is what we talk about, the scientific inimitability of the Quran. Okay? Next. So this is just an example, in the process of bioleaching that they use. These are very, popular methods now for extracting metals from their ores. And then on the bottom, it's the chemical leaching. Okay, and you can see U here. So U is uranium. So I hope the IAEA doesn't come following us here and accuse us of enriching uranium. Anyway, bioleaching, chemical leaching, these are the processes used that have been discovered only recently now, very similar to the hydrological process in the self-purification in the first example. Glory be to Allah. Next. Next slide. Okay, so let's finish up with the subject of embryology. So, look at yourself when no one knew you, when you didn't know anything, when you didn't know where you were going to go, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, has there not been a period of time when the human was not a thing mentioned? On a collective level, before creation, and on an individual level, before your individual creation. There was a time when you were not a thing mentioned. Next. How much time do we have? Excuse me? 5. I can't finish embryology in 5 minutes. I need 2 hours. When was the microscope discovered? 7th century? Probably for people who want to challenge scientific inimitability, they'll tell us the Quran was discovered at the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and he used the microscope, and that's how he got all of this embryology. What do you think? Any biologists here? Doctors? Engineers? No? All human sciences? How many human sciences? History, IRK? Okay, not all. So when was the microscope discovered? Approximately, give me a ballpark figure. 17th century? Yeah, exactly. 17th century. MashaAllah. Mid-17th century, okay? So, only 3 centuries back or so. Right? A little bit over 3 centuries ago. Not at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. 1,000 years after the Prophet ﷺ. Next. That first microscope in the mid-17th century looks like this. You know, if you saw this, you might have thought it's like a toy. This was the first microscope. Extremely crude, right? Compared to what we have today. So even that microscope did not stop scientists at the time from making ludicrous claims about embryology, as we will see. Next. This is a 17th century diagram. That's what scientists thought the embryo looked like inside the sperm. So what do you think now? But, Prophet Muhammad, he had information. But 17th century, and with their microscope, this is what they're claiming. Ludicrous claims. Even then, this is the kind of conclusion they reached. The human being is a full human being, just like you are now, but you're just compressed, and you're crammed, and you're just waiting for the 9 months to be over. You can't wait to come out, right? That's what they thought. Why do I tell you this? Because the miracle of embryology in the Quran is twofold. Number one, it's a miracle enough, and it is scientifically inimitable enough, that the Quran told us that this is rubbish. That's a miracle in itself. When in the 17th century, with their first microscope, they are claiming this is how the embryo looks like, and the Quran is saying this is rubbish. The embryo goes through stages, a process they call epigenesis. In other words, the embryo is not formed all at once, it goes through stages, and these stages are called epigenesis. So just the fact that the Quran is saying, no, this is not the way, it's created in stages, that itself is scientifically inimitable. Does that mean that there were no others talking about epigenesis? No, there were. There were other scientists saying this is also rubbish. These were the preformationists, they call them. Scientists who believed in preformation, as opposed to formation stages. But the fact that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, 1,000 years before this, is saying unequivocally, preformation is not correct. The embryo is formed through a process of gradual stages called epigenesis. That itself is amazing. That's the first stage. So now we add, I told you it's twofold. Now we add the fact that not only did the Quran affirm the process of epigenesis, the gradual development of the embryo, but even describe those stages. You see what I'm saying? This is the ultimate miracle. Telling us and giving names to these stages. Next. So, the Quranic sequence talks about first, of course, the first creation being from clay. The second being the nutfa, then the alaqa, then the mudgha, and then bones, and then flesh, and then a seventh stage, which is, of course, what? Seventh stage? Why did I put question marks? Because I don't know. So help me. Seventh stage? Something that is hard to describe. Ar-ruh. The giving of the ruh. So after bones and flesh, and then Allah Azza wa Jal gives the ruh, which is the ultimate life, right? Which you cannot say much about or describe or explain. But these are the stages. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us terms. Al-nutfa, al-alaqa, al-mudgha. Let me stay with these three. These are the most important now. Al-nutfa is the drop. Technically a drop of water. Whether it is from the male or the female. Okay? The sperm or the egg. Al-nutfa. Then al-alaqa. Okay? Usually correlated with blood vessels. There are some different, definitions for halaqa. I don't have time, unfortunately, to go into all the details. Al-mudgha. Al-mudgha is basically a name for a chewed bite, like a morsel of food that you just started chewing. Okay? Then you think, morsel of food, a chewed bite? That's what the embryo looks like? Well, we'll see. Next. This is the embryo at 22 to 23 days. Actually, as this is an X-ray picture, it's not very clear. If you were to see it in real life, you will see that these, what look like teeth on the back, these are called somites. Actually, in real life, it looks exactly like a chewed piece of gum or a chewed lump, a chewed morsel of food. So this is actually the beginning of the mudghah stage. Yeah, from 22 to 23 days. So already, it's happening very fast. Already, at 3 weeks, at the end of 3 weeks, the mudghah stage seems to have already started, which is the third stage of the embryo. We have before that al-nutfa and then al-alaqa and then al-mudghah. Okay? And of course then there's the idea that the alaqa also gives us the definition of a leech, and this is the way it looks. That's why they're comparing it to a picture of a leech. This is the way. It's amazing that, when you look back at that picture that they are surmising the embryo to look like, and you compare it to reality, right? The Quran is actually describing those stages. So this is from around 20 to 27 days. Next. So at the beginning of the third week, vasculogenesis and angiogenesis, or what is called blood vessel formation, begins. These are not my words, these are the words of embryologists and experts. Begins in the extra-embryonic mesoderm of the umbilical vessel connecting stalk and chorion. So this angiogenesis or blood vessel formation is beginning in the third week. This is precisely in the alaqa stage. And the alaqa, we said, is usually correlated with blood. That's why sometimes the alaqa is translated as a drop of congealed blood. Okay? When you look at the embryo at that stage, indeed, you can see the blood and the blood vessels. I'll show you in a picture. So this is the beginning of the 3rd week, right? So it seems, wallahu a'lam, that the alaqa stage begins sometime in the 3rd week. So the nutfa is only 2 weeks. The alaqa is the 3rd week, and the rest is for the nutfa up to the 40 days. By the end of the 7th week, that's 49 days, ossification of the bones of the upper limbs has begun. So we're already in the bones stage. Remember the sequence? Bones is number 5. Already in the 7th week. Are you confused? What about the 4 months that we keep hearing about? Right? 4 months, 4 months, 4 months. How many days? 4 months. 120 days. By that time, nutfa is long finished. Alaqa is long finished. Mudgha is long finished. Actually, all of those stages are finished in 40 days. Not in 120 days. And I can explain that further maybe in the Q&A if we have time. Next. See? You can see the blood, you can see the blood vessels. Of course, this seems to be an aborted fetus. This is, how old in your opinion? Now that we're talking about weeks and days and months, how old is this fetus? Take a guess. How much? More than 40. Okay. Other estimates? 4 months. Allahu Akbar. 1 month or 4 months? 4 months. Okay. 1 month? 1 month, 2 months? Click it, sister. 6 weeks. See how big he already is? 6 weeks, a month and a half. So you were close, brother. Okay? The 40 days. Remember what we just said. The nutfa, the alaqa, the mudgha, it's all finished already. You can already see, maybe you can do a laser pointer from there. Is it 2013 or? If you click it, you might get a laser. Ah, there it is. Good. So, can you go to his hand, sister? It's like, what hands? I don't see hands. Yeah. See the hand? That's his hand. And you can even see the palm. That's his eye over there. So you are already finished with the nutfa and the alaqa and the mudgha is already done. By 6 weeks, 40 days. It's not the 4 months, be careful. That I understand that may need more explanation, but I'm just trying to show you. Here it is. Okay? It's already done, and you're going to start ossification, as we just read. Ossification will start by the 7th week. The bones will enter into the bone stage. Okay? Next. Of course, this is so small. Huh? This is on a drop. It will be this small on your palm. Okay. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, in every one of you, all components of your creation are gathered together in your mother's womb by 40 days. By Allah. This is being said in the 7th century. And people in the 17th century are telling us the embryo is pushed into the sperm like a box. And the Prophet ﷺ is telling us all components of your... So it's not only the stages, but even a description of the stages and the days also. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is talking about the days. How many days? Right? All components of your creation are gathered together in your mother's womb by 40 days. Go back to the embryo, sister. Embryo is complete. The rest is just, dressing, makeup. But the embryo is there. The head is there. The limbs are there. The legs are there. The blood vessels are formed. Just the bones and the flesh. Right? Next. And the other hadith, when 42 nights had passed, right? This hadith also points to the fact that the 4 months is a mistake. To say that the nutfa and the alaqa and the mudgha take 4 months, 120 days. Well, how come the Prophet ﷺ is saying in 42 days, Allah sends an angel and He will shape it and make its ears and its eyes and its skin and its flesh and its bones? So where did the 120 days come from? That will take some time to explain. Next. Okay, let's finish up this part. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, then we placed him as a sperm drop in a firm lodging. Then we made the sperm drop into a clinging clot, the alaqa. And we made the clot into a lump of flesh, the mudgha. And we made from the lump bones. And we covered the bones with flesh. Then we developed him into another creation. So blessed is Allah, the best of creators. A far cry from pre-formationist theory. Next. So this is Dr. Keith Moore, a famous embryologist. There's so much, I don't have a lot of time. He has awards. His book is one of the most seminal books, textbook on embryology. He's not a Muslim, or at least he might have converted to Islam, but he was not a Muslim when he was writing about this, but he wrote about embryology. So he wrote this famous, The Developing Human, Clinically Oriented Embryology. Go next, sister. We'll see what he has to say. Recipient of so many awards. Next, go on. Okay, he's recognized. He says the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Mohammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I don't know if he said that, provide a very detailed description of the microscopic development of the human embryo, from a mere sperm drop up to the stage of a completely formed human being. It is well known that microscopes were not developed until the 16th century AD. Okay, so I'm pushing it a little bit ahead, but if you say even 16th century, again, it's very crude, right? So, and even at that, as he says, we're very crude in design, right? Next. The science of embryology as we know it today did not discover many of the detailed aspects of human development which are taken for granted today until only about 20 years ago, or 1973 to be precise. So even attributing this information and this science to the mid-20th century is not correct. 1973! And the Quran is talking about it since 623, or even before that. Because the staging of the human embryo is complex, owing to the continuous process of change during development, it is therefore suggested that a new system, he's suggesting this, a new system of classification could be developed using the terms mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah. The proposed system is simple, comprehensive, and conforms with present embryological knowledge. Next. His partner and a co-author of the book, Dr. Prasad, also recipient of, awards, and he has so many textbooks. You have someone illiterate making profound pronouncements and statements. Next. And that are amazingly accurate about scientific nature. And I personally can't see how this could be a mere chance. There are too many accuracies, and like Dr. Moore, I have no difficulty in my mind that this is a divine inspiration or revelation which led him to these statements. Next. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, say, tell me, what if the Quran is from Allah, and then you disbelieve in it? Who is more astray than one who is in opposition far away? We will show them our signs in the furthest regions and in their own selves until it becomes manifest to them that this is the truth. Allahu Akbar. Jazakumullahu khairan.